Sounds like almost no imagination.
It'd be devastating. So
It's a bit like you're missing out on something.
Are there any advantages? No, I don't think so.
I mean, there's a couple of things I wouldn't want to remember, but
I mean, it's not like you never saw a sunset, but while you're seeing it, you can appreciate it. But as soon as you turn your back, we can't remember what it looks like.
Modern humans are a product of 6 million years of evolution. Humans have a unique ability to retain visual information from the world around us and paint a mental image in our mind's eye. In the past decade, however, an anomaly was discovered. A small percentage of the population began reporting that they had an entirely different experience. Close your eyes. Imagine a small boat on a glistening harbour. Do you see something like this? Or maybe something like this? What if you couldn't see anything at all? In the mind of a person with aphantasia, mental imagery simply does not exist. So, what causes aphantasia?
Well, the straight up answer is we don't yet know. My name's Joel Pearson. I'm an associate professor here at the University of New South Wales. So it really wasn't until 2015, around that time, where people started talking about aphantasia, and then since then, there's sort of an explosion of interest around the world.
It's been known for centuries that people differ in their experience to imagine. My name's Rebecca Keogh, and the reason I joined the Pearson Lab team is I was interested in why some people are very good at imagining and some people are quite poor. About 1 to 3% of people at this stage we think probably have aphantasia.
So congenital aphantasia is the name given to people born without any mental imagery, so total mind blindness. We use something called binocular rivalry. It's a visual illusion, and we sort of hacked that or changed that, turned it into a tool or technique to measure the strength of mental imagery. So it opened up mental imagery as a field in lots of different and new directions. Up until that point in time, there was no way to measure the sensory strength of mental imagery.
The imagination and visual imagery get conflated together. So the ability to imagine doesn't necessarily need to use visual imagery. A lot of people might use visual imagery when they imagine, but you don't actually need to use visual imagery to imagine.
So we know in the general population that areas back here, the visual cortex, are smaller with people with stronger imagery. So will that be the case with aphantasia? So maybe people aphantasia without any mental imagery will have a particularly large visual cortex. When people try and imagine or do something that should involve imagery, but they don't have imagery, what happens in the brain? And compare that to people doing this exact same task with imagery. What's different and why? There are a couple of promising directions of research we're looking into at the moment that may well be able to give aphantasics the experience of imagery.
Artist Leon Fernandez is considered hypervisual and capable of seeing mental imagery as vividly as most experience real life.
What I've read about aphantasia and the condition intrigues me because it's something that I can barely understand. I can replicate the experience of being a blind person somewhat by closing my eyes. I can't replicate the experience of someone with aphantasia by not thinking of a dog, for example. It intrigues the hell out of me because it makes me think about the extent to which my thoughts are pictures and which, or if they're words or if they're sounds. I feel my strongest sense is visual. I think that's true for many people. I'm guessing for most people, I don't know, but certainly visual. It changes my life. I imagine that people with aphantasia can absolutely produce art. I think for me, a lot of art happens in front of the actual canvas once the paint is on the surface, once the pen is on the paper. I could imagine there's certain things that someone with aphantasia couldn't do, but I also imagine there's certain things that they could do. I'd be shocked if that prevented people from making art.
Mechanical engineer Colin was shocked to discover that others are actually able to conjure imagery in their mind's eye.
Visualising, your life, your experiences, your family, your friends, your family, your friends, your family, 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 your family and how you want it to pan out, and not being able to do that definitely has an impact. I know that a lot of other instances I felt frustrated by the fact that I can't visualise, whereas going throughout school it never even occurred to me that there was a need to visualise any aspect of what we're learning. There are just all these small little areas of life that could improve. When I found that other people could actually visualise things that I can't visualise, my initial thought was that they're exaggerating. I thought, no, there cannot be such a difference between what I'm experiencing and what they're experiencing. You know, this particularly started probably 40 years ago when I was looking at meditation and visualisation. Thinking, all these people are saying that, oh yeah, we can picture this beautiful beach scene. I think, no, you can't. it's impossible. You can get a concept of it.
Amber, a successful businesswoman and mother of 3, also reports having no visual experience.
I didn't know that it was a thing or that I was different. I didn't know I had aphantasia until a year ago. A friend posted a link with an article about it. It doesn't surprise me that 1 in 50 people have aphantasia. In fact, I thought it might have even been more people. Obviously, it was a surprise to learn that people didn't have aphantasia, because that's my whole life. That's all I've ever known. I think it's definitely just a different way of seeing the world. I don't feel like it's held me back in my life. I'm very happy with my life. I've been to school and university. I've had a good job. I have a family, a lovely husband and children. So I can't say in any way that it's been a disability for me.
I have to let on that I'm a doctor and I haven't heard of aphantasia. For something that's a disability, it's got to be socially, it's got to be an impediment in society. So if it's a large impediment to somebody, then yes, you could classify it as a disability.
The fact is that all human brains are very complex. We vary in millions of different ways, individual to individual. Aphantasia is just one of those aspects of variance, and it's by no means a negative one according to the evidence we have so far. My name is Marcus Wicken, and we're at the University of New South Wales in the School of Psychology in the Pearson Cognitive Neuroscience Lab. My role in the aphantasia research being conducted here is looking at 2 things. I look at memory in people who self-identify as having aphantasia, and I also look at some aspects of emotion in those people. Many people who have aphantasia describe having had it forever, so since birth. But there are also some reports of what looks like aphantasia in people who've suffered an injury later in life. So it seems that it can vary. Now that by no means suggests that people with aphantasia are less emotional. It by no means suggests that they're less susceptible to being afraid of things, but it might suggest that they're less susceptible to being afraid of things just by thinking about them, okay? Which is really quite interesting, because what it suggests is that imagery, for everybody else, imagery might be, in fact, the key brain process that leads to people being really debilitated by worrying about the future. And so I guess in many ways, people with aphantasia are teaching us about what it's like emotionally to have imagery.
Filmmaker Geordie Shears is generating awareness about the condition in the hope that people with aphantasia can reach out to one another and fuel much needed research.
Talking to so many people all over the world whilst creating this documentary, there's a real bond and we have a commonality. It's a relief for the people I'm speaking to as much as it is informative for me. I realise in an artistic context, it's not going to be beneficial for me to tell people that I'm not able to visualise things before I create them. And I think starting film school was a good example of that. But I'm now making a documentary about it, so.
The advice I'd give somebody who thinks that they have aphantasia,
I would say to not worry.
Don't let it define you.
Just embrace it. You are who you are. Diversity is a wonderful thing.
and it doesn't by any means come out as some sort of weakness or disability.
There are many successful scientists, entrepreneurs, artists that have aphantasia.
And that's, it's no different to people who don't have any hair, people who have got brown eyes or blue eyes. It's just who you are, and you're going to live a wonderful life irrespective of whether you've got it or not.